have your cell phones ready to go, because there's a few polling questions near the end of this. So. All right, today the goals for this presentation are, one, to understand 3 benefits of using this sort of software or internet data for quizzing. Second, to sort of understand some problems that we encountered with this technology, and also to get a better understanding of how to start this software or use this technology if you were starting it. And then finally, like I said, we'll get a little first-hand account of how this works. So to start with the benefits, I'm going to turn it over to Brian here real quick. Or actually, I'm sorry. This. Just to set up, just to get sort of an idea, sort of framework of how all this started. We used this technology in a first-year seminar that was conducted last semester. There were 18 students, and they're all first years. And there were two instructors. Brian was the primary instructor, and I was a teaching colleague. So my job was basically to write these quizzes, learn how to use this internet polling software, and to help with sort of writing and that kind of thing. Within the class we had papers, readings, and then, as I was saying, the quizzes. So now, I'll hand it off to Brian for the benefits.
I want to start by saying what a pleasure it was to work with Rob when we were designing this class in the spring. We talked about using this technology, and we were really concerned that if we were going to use cell phones, we wanted to make sure that it wouldn't prevent some students from having access or make some students feel awkward who didn't have cell phones maybe. And so we put a lot of thought into how to use that technology but still make it accessible. We found out that you could use the same polling software and you could log on with a laptop or another mobile device, so we figured we could get enough of those to help students who didn't have cell phones. We also, I thought, if there's no charge for using this service to students except for whatever fee their service provider charges to send text phones. Most students we found had unlimited plans, but I thought, well, if you really can't afford it, I'll give you guys 10 cents a quiz or whatever to pay for that. None of that turned out to be an issue. When we got to actually using it with the students, everybody in the class had a cell phone, and in fact people were thrilled that we were using the cell phones instead of asking them to purchase some additional technology like a clicker, and it ended up passing the cost of those things on to students, which is a growing trend. Those can cost anywhere from $30 to $80, $90 for the high-end ones, so people were thrilled to use the technology that they had, and they were familiar with their individual cell phones, which worked out great.
All right, continuing with benefits. What's great about this is that after taking a quiz, you can switch over to sort of an answer view and see all the recorded answers. So there's an element of this instant feedback, which kind of keeps the information that you're quizzing on relevant. It's not like, a week later you get a quiz back and this information's already passed you. It keeps everything sort of in a nice framework. Also, these devices are completely familiar to students, whereas like a polling device may not be. Everybody has cell phones, everyone knows how to use them, how to text. So it really adds an element of familiarity in this classroom setting. All right, getting into some of the problems we encountered. The service for these polls and slides sometimes comes with errors, and in class when we were giving these quizzes we often found that a small number of students repeatedly had issues in connecting to this. We just kind of quickly solved it by just throwing a sheet of paper in front of them and just having it be noted on paper. But it does get frustrating when that keeps happening over and over. And also, for the sake of organization, in recording answers, all students that you want to be able to see their scores, record their scores on quizzes, need to be registered on the website that it's polleverywhere.com, and I'll get to that in a second. But getting everyone to be on the same format can get kind of difficult.
So we have handouts in the back. If you're interested at all, pick them up, and they describe step by step how you can get on, use the software. And the software offers a free version that you can sign up for, start playing around with, send messages to it. The free version allows you to do polling. It doesn't allow you to track individual responses. So once you start paying for versions, then you're able to identify individual responses with individual students, which means you can use it for quizzing, and you can, when you ask the quiz questions, you can pre-identify some that are the correct answer, and so they'll automatically grade it for you. They have a whole number of packages, and we don't work for this software. There are other softwares that do this, but Poll Everywhere starts at $50 for a whole year if your class is less than 40 students, and that's the package that I went with. And then they have ones that let you manage multiple classes, things of that nature. What we ended up doing, because there's a registration, but Rob had access to some of the grading, is to have the students use their ID or randomly generated ID or something like that instead of their names, so then that the data that is exported, and you can export it to Excel directly from the online software, that data is then essentially anonymous or at least confidential. Only the instructor can associate the final grades with the student ID, but it still allows the software to automatically grade it.
So when starting these quizzes, it's really simple. Like Brian said, there's a handout that sort of shows in more detail, if you're looking to get started, how to make quizzes and record grades. But you only allow the registered participants, which would be your students in this case, to answer questions, so that you can have this, you can have all their answers recorded. It, like we were saying, shows up as just a student identification number, and then questions in like the columns, and just whether they were right or wrong. And it's very easy to record everything in that way. And these slides, as I think we'll get to next, these slides are just, you just create them. There's a really easy template on the website, and then you can group them, make them into PowerPoint slides, integrate them into slides like this one, and then the grades can be just picked up right off the website and downloaded onto Excel. And it's just really great, especially for me. I'm not very organized at all, to keep things really, really fairly organized. So let's move on to some of these. All right, so if you have your cell phone out, just grab it really quick. This is just a regular multiple choice poll. Very simple. All you have to do is text to the contact you should be texting to. The number that you text to is 37607. And then the answer, you just text one of the corresponding numbers to that number. Alright, so you guys can keep texting, it's fine. Some of the great features about these slides, I'll just go over a few. What I was saying earlier about showing instant results. So you can have results come up like this. That's blue is the correct answer, so that's good.
Thank you very much.
So this adds really well to, you can go through a set of slides that are just quizzing questions, and then at the end of it, go through all of them, show the results for all of them, and then people know if they got the right or wrong answer. So.
And I'll insert, you can see as people are still responding how quickly the real-time data is changing, which makes it useful not only for quizzes, but for impromptu. With quizzes, you can just show the answer options and hide the results. But if you're doing impromptu polling, you want to just ask the class how they feel about a topic, who's your favorite character in the story. You can even bring this screen up and show the results as people are voting, poll the audience.
Is this an online screen?
This is,
yeah, this screen is actually a PowerPoint slide, but you do have to have an internet connection for it to retrieve this polling data and also record the data if you were choosing to do that. So here's another one. Same contact, different message number.
When we were preparing it, that's not the one we expected to win.
I can go through a couple of the other features on the slides. You can, at any time, go into a settings menu here, change, any type of, set or format that you want the quiz to show up in. You can change the chart style, have it, instead of being a bar graph, be a line graph, that kind of thing.
Can we do multiple answers?
Yeah, you can vote multiple times on this. There are settings that you can change it that members can only vote one time for something like a quiz. But right here, yeah, you could answer as many times as you want.
All right.
But if you're using it for quizzes, you associate it, their phone number is associated with their account, and then you can lock it down so they can only answer once, or their most recent answer will be counted. You can specify it however you want. And they can also associate multiple devices with their account. So if they want to be able to respond from a cell phone one day and a computer the next day, they can associate both those with the same account.
Or their friend's phone, right?
So what?
Or their friend's phone, right?
Well, the phone can only be associated with one response thing. So a student, yeah, or they can borrow a phone, something like that. I'll also add in the bottom right on both the results slide and on the slide that shows the option, it shows you the total number of people who have responded. And so that's useful if you're using it as a quiz in class and not showing the response. You can say, okay, we'll wait, we still need one more person who hasn't, okay, we got you, next slide, like that.
I think there's just one more polling. This is a different style of question. As Brian was saying earlier. So this is open-ended. And the way this works, it's the same contact. All you have to do is first type in this first name here, if you can see it. So you first type this 267531, hit a space, and then whatever open-ended answer, hopefully an appropriate one.
Does it use the same contact number for each?
No, and in fact,
each class or like
also
each session?
Yeah, each quiz will have a different number, and when you group questions into, like, say you're just doing a full quiz with 10 slides, when you group them, you can once you actually group them, there's like a group entering code. So you would come in, type this, you then entered it, and you just type like A, B, C. You don't have to have this 6-digit code for an answer.
So the format we're using here, we have to type in each time, is because the participants aren't registered. When you actually register people in a class, it gets much shorter. At the beginning of the class, like Rob's saying, they text one number, and then from then on, they can just respond A, much easier, much quicker. And I'll also add that with certain of the upgraded packages, you can, with the open-ended responses, moderate them before they show up on the screen. All the students at Hobart William Smith are very mature. That's not an issue. But
Alright, so. So just a couple of stats that we collected at the end of the year, just a little impromptu. We polled and got this information. Of the 14 people that took this at the end of our class, 92% said they thought it was effective in the classroom, and everybody in the class seemed to like how it was used and the integration that we provided. And I think that's it. So that's our contact information. If anybody has any questions.
What about cheating? If you're giving a history test, my cell phone doesn't, but I'm sure most people have cell phones with internet access.
Yeah.
They can probably look up on Wikipedia.
That's a really good question. That was something we had to try to figure out at the beginning of the year.
And you can't.
Yeah, I mean.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The question is cheating. What do you do for cheating? Because smartphones, you can access the internet and look up anything you wanted, and then just answer the quiz or the question really quickly. The way we did that is basically that we knew we had 14 people being polled. At the end of that, once we had 14, and we kept it sort of at a quick pace, and sort of, it would take much longer if you were looking up answers and then recording them, answering. So we kind of just push things along quickly, and it keeps. And also have an instructor just standing there and watching.
Yeah.
It's really not that bad.
I would sometimes, you can tell if the same student is consistently the last one to respond to a question, and then you can just stand next to them and intimidate them, and it didn't turn out to be an issue. I'll also add that the technology records what time each of the responses come in. So if you suspected that a student was doing that, or that one student was texting another student or something like that, you could actually go back to the data record and see if student A always responded 30 seconds after student B, or if this student was always the last one to respond, or things of that nature. But it really didn't, that was another concern I had early on, and it really didn't turn out to be an issue. People just responded real quick, next question. Yes, sir.
So the stuff that we've just been doing, this is the free part of the service?
Yeah, the stuff that we've just been doing you could do with the free service. This is technically through the account that we used in the class that's paid for, but you could do everything that we just did free. What you can't do is link, right? So you guys all responded, those phone numbers disappear. If you respond again, there's no way of tracking your response on color to your college. With the registered version, we could link those to phone numbers, and then we could go back and look at the data and see, do people at Hobart William Smith get the color question to blue more and things of that nature, use it for quizzing like that.
Okay.
Yes?
Hi. So I am interested in, there's a perception that you presented. The students perceived that it was 92%, like that it was used, and they all thought it was used appropriately. In your, for your thinking, did it enrich or enhance the student learning? Were you able to track either from previous experiences teaching the class, or that there was retention, or what?
Yeah, I can't give you any previous experience from teaching a class. But I think the benefits in getting the instant feedback, also in having sort of a familiar thing going on while you're in class, I think that's helpful. The errors that we dealt with, I think, are easily fixed. Basically just getting on people's cases to register correctly, get everybody on the same format. So yeah, I think it was beneficial.
I'll add, I'm interested in social norming, and I think from a social norming perspective, it was really powerful when you would give a quiz question and then you go back 3 minutes later and look at the responses, and you would see 83% of people got this question right, right? And so normally the student who would either come after class and say, oh, it was a confusing question, or I didn't understand, I thought, why was it, I didn't know it was Romeo and Juliet, I thought it was Romeo and Sarah, why, that's not central to the, and you could look right in front and say, well, 92% of students didn't find the question confusing. And I think students very quickly then were able to see how their level of preparation matched other students' level of preparations. And sometimes we'd even use it to ask social normal questions like, how much did you study for this quiz? How many hours did you spend on your second revision of your paper? And people would come in thinking, oh, I spent 4 hours, but it shouldn't have taken me that long. And they could see, oh, most of the people in the class spent 4 more hours preparing for this, and that would help them feel that way. And then finally, on the other end of that, I was able to see when I made mistakes in preparing questions. If 60% of people immediately got a question wrong, I could A, clarify the question and get across the content that I had intended to be measuring. And I could say to people, it sounds like that was a bad question. I'll go back and throw that out and give you a point. So they would leave class feeling like the quizzes were more fair than they wouldn't if they didn't have that immediate feedback.
Plus you're saving trees.
Go green. Yeah.
Just one question. I think the technology is pretty awesome. Just in your observation, sometimes it's hard for us to get the stoplight in the phones. to start with. So when we ask them to bring them back up and use the phone, do you find that it's difficult to get them to stop playing with the phone after the quiz?
Yeah, well, not really, no. The class format was more discussion-based, so everyone was within eyeshot of everyone else. So I think the attitude was good enough to just know that, you know, this was used for quizzing. We're discussing things for the rest of the class, so the cell phone should be sort of in your bag or away. So I didn't find it to be that big of a problem. No.
I'm thinking this could be an awesome way for people to provide information from the field kind of thing. I'm wondering how long of a window can you leave a question open and let the...
It can be open for as long as you want. It's all about me closing it, so I can actually come back here and stop. Cool.
So right now, until he hit that button, it's actually still receiving data for that
So
question.
it could be a week.
So it could be a week later. It could be students responding. If you're just using it for polling and there wasn't right or wrong kind of answer thing, or it was open book, you could use the software. People could access it from their residence halls and respond over the course of a week, and it would still work, and the data could still be viewed in real time, integrated with real-time data, and displayed.
So I was just thinking about the applicability of if you were able to do that over a period of time when students were not sitting in the classroom, that then you could be polling, they're thinking about something or a particular topic, and then posting it, say, on your Blackboard site or wherever you were posting that. Can students post, like, could you open it up so that students could actually post to find out what their peers' perception of something?
No, there's no way to give.
Okay.
You have to give administrator access
Yeah.
to set up the questions.
Yeah.
But there are other technologies that
Right.
do that.
Question.
Sorry.
Does it also work for, I would assume it does, but I just want to see if you guys tested this out. Like if someone is on their Gmail or Google, can they just use that little text box there or chat box and type in a text that way and have it registered through?
The question is whether you could use like SMS technology from a email account, and the answer is I don't know. Do you know?
We never use that. I know that you can access, I don't think it's an email account, but it's a link for the website that you basically will just have the same questions in front of you, and you would answer in a similar fashion. We never had major issues with cell phones, so we never explored that, but I'm sure you
brought the question up because I know in a lot of K-12 schools they block the, if they're handing out the mobile technology, they're not allowing voice or data exchange. So if there's another way around that.
Yeah, there certainly is another way around it. We just never got into it that much.
We actually started this session early. I apologize, so you can have another 5 minutes or so.
Okay, yeah, any more questions? Go ahead.
I know it's a small class, but have you looked at, or do you know anybody who's using it to submit questions? In other words, not to break the flow of a class, but my wife's a prophetess, and she does it with big groups where, you know, on the bottom of the screen, people can submit questions. So I got a question in on whatever.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and I was just thinking about that the other day. Basically, you just mean that I could have this up. You could be just texting me questions on the fly. Right. Yeah, it's a great idea. We never used it. I've never.
Yeah, but you will now.
But I will now. Yeah, that's great. And with the moderator feature, I'm just thinking with you, you could actually set it up so that you're seeing the questions on your screen, and then you can pick one by one which one you want to allow through, so you could do that and then respond to it. That's a great idea.
Any more questions? No? All right, well, thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening.
And again, there's a handout in the very back if you'd like more information. Feel free to contact us.